I never know who I am, whether I'm a right-wing MAGA extremist or a Ron DeSantis supporting rhino. But today, where I am here on the floor, I would just say this: I cannot agree to vote for a full increase in the debt without any assurance that steps will be taken to reduce the alarming increase in the deficits and the debt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this rule to advance this cruel, extreme, unworkable Default on America Act.
Over the last 2 years, President Biden has financed his radical agenda and vast expansion of the federal government with an unprecedented $10 trillion in spending, $6 trillion of which has been added to our national debt, the highest level of deficit spending in the history of America. This unbridled spending spree has resulted in sustained record inflation, soaring interest rates, an economy in a recessionary tailspin, and a nation on the brink of a catastrophic debt crisis. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal state of the nation is bleak, our national debt is unsustainable, and the outlook grows more uncertain every day.
Now, I had hoped that when the Speaker referred to the budget process and debt ceiling as, quote, apples and oranges, it meant my friends on the other side finally understood the real-world ramifications of their reckless brinksmanship. And yet here we are.
Partisan. And my friend made the point that inflation is a global phenomenon. I agree. Absolutely is. When you screw up the greatest economy in the world, it has global consequences. And that's exactly what my friends did. Don't take my word for it. They were warned by Larry Summers, the Secretary of the Treasury for Bill Clinton, distinguished economist. They were warned by Steve Ratner, who managed the auto industry under President Obama. They were warned by Jason Furman, who was the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors for President Biden. If you pass something—
In reference to this current discussion on the debt ceiling, our first president articulated this in a manner that for such a young country can only be described as timeless. No pecuniary consideration is more urgent than the regular redemption and discharge of the public debt.
Now, the debt limit's there for a reason. If your family's living beyond its means and needs to raise its credit limit, it better sit down around the kitchen table and have a serious discussion over the circumstances that have gotten it into this mess and what steps it needs to take to get out. The debt limit's there to assure we have exactly that discussion as a nation. Now, the President and the Democrats across the aisle say they're not willing to engage in that discussion. Well, to coin a phrase, come on, man. When Bill Clinton lost the House in 1994, he reached across the aisle to work with House Republicans. Together, a Democrat president and a Republican House accomplished wonderful things. They reformed the welfare system, as this bill does. They cut spending as a percentage of GDP. They produced the biggest capital gains tax cut in history. But most importantly, they balanced 4 budgets in a row and produced one of the greatest economic expansions in our nation's history. And by the way, Clinton was reelected. Now, Americans are soon going to ask themselves, are we better off than we were 4 years ago?